afternoon, good morning, good day, depending on wherever you are and when you're listening. This is the solution. Nothing changes, we change nothing. My name is Chevar Francis. New Development Specialist with the PRC. One of the co-hosts, unfortunately, Ronnie is having some technical difficulties. And she'll be here shortly, but we're going to keep moving forward. Just as a reminder, we are housed in Children's Aid, funded by Oasis, the Office of Addiction Services and Support. But again, this is the solution. I'm your host until Ronnie shows up. We'll do it together. We're going to have a good show today. I'll let some of our guests in. I know normally you have like a little bit of banter at the beginning, but do things a little different today. Let me let the guests in. And while they're in, I hope you guys are all enjoying yourselves with the holiday season. I know the weather may be different depending on where you are when you're listening. I'm in New York currently. It is cold out here. And if you're somewhere warm, I'm jealous of you, and that's totally fine. And I envy you. Hey, welcome to our guests. Ronnie, I just want to give you guys a heads up. Ronnie's having some technical difficulties. She'll be on in a moment. But listen, I host podcasts on my own. I have two other podcasts. I have two other podcasts. I forget how many podcasts I've had in the past. But we're definitely going to get started. So it would be great if you guys, we have two guests, and if I butcher your names, I so apologize. Yeah, is Issei, right?
You got it right.
That's why I'm Chevar. Chevar. We have Issei and Nicolette from MADD. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good morning. I guess good morning, good day, depending on whoever's listening. It might be evening somewhere. So let's just say good life, if that's okay. So who would like to introduce themselves first and so we can get started?
Sure. I'm the regional program director at Mothers Against Drunk Drive.
Well, who are you? You just said you are. Who are you? You didn't tell us your name. I just said your name.
That's right. That's right. I'm just excited to be here. I'm Issei Fuentes, regional program director at MADD. New York. And our region is New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And I will leave it to our other guest to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Nicolette Franzone. I am a former part-time program specialist for MADD, but currently a very active volunteer with the organization. And yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Let's start off with a bit of history of MADD, if you can. Can you guys break down what MADD is for the listeners, for some of our younger listeners who might not know what MADD is?
Sure. No, of course. So MADD, or Mothers Against Drunk Driving, our mission is to end drunk driving, and drugged driving, support the victims of these violent crimes, and prevent underage drinking and other drug use. Our organization began in 1980. A mother lost her daughter due to a drunk driver. There wasn't any organizations out there, so because of everything that she had to endure, she decided to form this organization, and since then it has become a whole movement. Many other mothers in the early days that worked with MADD, including the founder of MADD, they led the way to the 21 legalization of just alcohol back in the 80s, and the .05 BAC in the 90s when that was signed off, and so many other things. And we've learned so much in regards to the true but 100% preventable dangers of impaired driving. And now we're actually celebrating 45 years this year, which is really exciting.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And it's always important to make sure that everyone knows the true importance of the dangers of impaired driving. It happens, unfortunately, every single day. So many victims are out there that have been impacted, that lost their loved ones, that survived their crashes. But these things don't have to happen. So whenever we can have conversations, especially now, whenever you're listening, right now, we're heading into the holiday season. So the conversation now more than ever is important because a lot of celebrations going on, and we just want everyone to have fun, but just be safe about it too.
Thank you, Issei, for sharing that. I mean, you added something that I didn't realize that was a part of the MADD acronym, the drug part. When did that part come about?
So we added the drugged driving piece back in the mid 2010s or so.
Okay.
And it was right before Colorado was going to legalize cannabis back in the day. And there was other states that did legalize it by that point, but Colorado was the first of the larger states in the country that did legalize it years and years ago. But impairment is impairment at the end of the day, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or anything else out there. We want to address it, and we want to make sure that people are being responsible now that other states are legalizing cannabis as well. You want to make sure that we can, put that out there too.
Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that this was relatively young, new, like a teenager, so to speak. With adding the drug piece to it, and I think it's a great idea to have people understand that not only the driving while drunk is also drugging while drunk. Is that correct to say? Is an issue too. Thank you for sharing that. Can you tell us what before I go, Nicolette, introduce yourself. I'm so sorry. I had Issei too. We had a talk.
Sorry.
Nicolette, come in and introduce. I am so sorry.
No worries. Yeah, so I guess I'll just start with how I found my way into this organization, this wonderful organization, MADD. My kind of story begins with a tragedy, unfortunately. I found myself involved in a fatal drug driving crash when I was about to be 13 years old. Unfortunately, my sister was the only fatality in that crash. There were multiple injuries, but that is kind of the beginning of this involvement in MADD. I was 13 at the time. Eventually, I started volunteering during my high school years, and it was actually with Issei. At the time, Issei was a program specialist. And so what I would do was accompany him to schools or sobriety meetings, and basically I would share my story. And of course, it was helpful to the people who were listening to it to kind of just raise awareness and kind of tell them like, hey, these are real things. It happens to people right here, within your community. And not only did that help them, I would say, but it also helped me to kind of cope. Just to kind of bring awareness to myself too, like this is real. This happened to me. This is a real thing. And I think just talking about it, it kind of helped me to process things.
If you don't mind, and thank you, I appreciate you sharing that part of your story, a part of your life, and your story is important. For people who are listening, they're young people or grown adults who've gone through what you've gone through, and this is a personal question for me. How are you today?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. So I would be lying if I said that coping with this childhood trauma, because that's exactly what it is. It's a childhood trauma, was easy when I was younger and even today as an adult. I have no problem owning that and saying, this is real. This happened to me, and that will affect me for the rest of my life, right? Because my sister is gone. She's not here. And thank God over the years, I have grown and I have developed, just better ways to cope with things and really just processing, and kind of just drawing connections to, okay, how does this affect me today? I think just like with anything, there are good days and bad days. Usually those tough emotions are heightened around birthdays or anniversaries. For some kids, it could just be like little triggers, um, this was more intense for me when I was younger, but if I saw two girls hugging, and they, express like, oh, it's my sister, like it would cause an ache in my heart, and like I said, it's changed over the years, but there is still absolutely still grief, and it's changed, through different life transitions. Like now I'm a mother. That actually was like the turning point for me and wanting to write my book, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit.
Oh, please, we want to know the book. We want to know the book. Links and everything. Links to the book and everything. I'm sorry, go for it.
For sure. But becoming a mother was like the turning point for me. That was, I just started to see things very differently and really just process like, wow, she really is gone. It was like another smack in the face. Like, oh man, she really isn't here. She's not here to witness me become a mom, but also I was reminded of everything that she lost out on. And so the grief changes, it stays with you, but I will say, thank God, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm happy. I feel so blessed, to have my family and to basically just be able to live my life in a way that, honors Angelica and honors God, because I come from this, from a spiritual perspective as well. So I'm happy to answer any sort of questions.
No, thank you for sharing her name because I was like, can I ask the name of your sister? And Angelica is the name. He said, I'm so sorry. He said, no, you're there. Hey, this is such an intriguing story.
Been
That
working
he said,
with Nicolette now for some time, so I know her, like the back of my hand. And hearing her and just seeing the growth that she's had throughout the years, it's impressive, and she's remarkable every time I hear her share anything. So I'm okay to say.
Thank you, Issa. It's so sweet.
and for those of you who are listening, if you and Ronnie just here now, and Ronnie just reminded me, I don't have the right background on.
Hi, everybody. I apologize. Technology, not always your friend. Uh, but I'm here now, and it's good to see you guys. And I'll just kind of sit back and listen for a little bit and jump in once I get a little acclimated. But thank you for showing up today on time.
If you don't mind, Nicolette, I'm gonna come back to you because again, like, your story is amazing. Angelica is loved. And we know that, that Angelica is loved and that she's missed, and spiritually she's still here with you, and what that looks like is up to you to determine and share. Um, so you talked about this story, you talked about the trauma you were going through with the loss of your sister and you becoming a mom. How has that changed your outlook on uh let me rephrase the question. No, let's stick with the question. So, you being a mom, and what's the story that you share with your daughter around the types of friends that I don't want to pinpoint friends or type of lifestyle or how they engage in substances or around people. Like, what is that conversation like?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my daughter, she's gonna be 3 in January. So
Happy birthday!
thank you. So it's a little early to start those conversations.
Absolutely.
Absolutely have been thinking about how am I going to approach these things with her when she gets there. This experience has without a doubt influenced how I will parent her and how I will again approach these conversations. I think it's the most important thing I can do is be honest, share my story, share my experiences. Um, this experience has kind of led me to be a very like I just say no to this stuff entirely. I personally don't partake in any sort of alcohol, substances, nothing. Um, I think that again, just honesty, being honest. If this is something that you want to explore, here are the rules. Here are some of the consequences. Physically, this is what can happen to your body. When people make bad choices with these things, this is what can happen. But I think first and foremost, just protecting her and it kind of drives me to want to do even more with this organization. And that's kind of why I found my way back to MADD. I took a little bit of a break with the volunteering when I met my now husband.
Congratulations on that too.
Thank you, thank you. So I took a little bit of a break, but again, having my daughter was like that turning point for me. I was like, all right, I need to get back involved, with this sort of stuff because I have a child now, and I want to protect her in the best way that I can. So again, just going back to spreading awareness, even advocating for, stricter laws or just implementing new laws that can, help protect everyone on our roadways. So it definitely is what is motivation for me. Having my daughter now is like, all right, let's go. I'm back in full force.
Yes, being a parent, I'm a parent myself. Being a parent is motivation to how you live. Well, at least for me, I can speak for myself. It's how I live my life and how some of us lives our life. And I should have said how old is the young, and I apologize for making So in before we get to Issa, you're coming, Issa. I'm so sorry. This story is just so.
No, go ahead.
Have you had conversations with other parents? And what does that look like if you have, or are you willing to?
Have I personally? Um, yeah, I mean, when someone comes to me directly, for sure, I would say for the most part, most of my sharing my story is to a wider audience, and it's usually when I, do these presentations for MADD. And so it's kind of like it's not so often that I'll have direct questions from people. I mean, I guess when doing like victim work, there would be more of an opportunity to do that. But usually I kind of just have a platform to speak and to share. So usually what I'll do is I'll walk through the first person point of view of me being in the crash. And I'm happy to go into some detail about that. But one thing that Issa and I have talked about is that over the years, I have changed the way that I've told my story. And Issa pointed that out to me. So when I first started volunteering, that was kind of the focus of what I would share. It was like, okay, here's what I was doing the night before the crash, and then kind of here's what happened, leading up to, and here was my perspective being in the car, and I kind of like focused on that. But now, and especially since writing my story, I have like a much bigger picture. I took a look at, okay, yes, there is my perspective of being in the crash, but what about everything else? I really wanted to tell the story of the behind the scenes, right? Not just in the immediate, like this was traumatic to see these things, but what happened after? And what happened after? What am I talking about? What happened at the hospital? What happened before Angelica was taken off of life support? And, we went home in between to get some sort of rest before we went back to the hospital, to do it all over again. What was that like? What was it like going home after Angelica was taken off of life support and walking past her room now every day, which is something I had to do. And then eventually 2 weeks later, going back to school, just adjusting to life, to this new life. I wanted to shine a light on that. And then the separate part was the criminal aspect of it. And then the civil suit as well. So I really wanted to share the bigger picture, and so now I kind of deliver a brief overview of it all, and how all of this was traumatic. It wasn't just being in the crash itself. It was how, I went back to school and how my peers interacted with me and my perception of law enforcement and the failed justice system. And all of that was traumatic. And so I want to be able to share all that. So that's why I wrote my book, and not just for other people, but for my daughter as well, because I want my daughter to know I'm your mother. This is part of my story. This is part of who I am. There's no way around it, and I want to own that story, and I have no problem sharing it and just being real about it.
Nicolette, you're sharing so much, and I have so many more questions that I want to ask, and I want to respect some of our time. But we're going to circle back to Ron. Do you have any questions before we'll get Issei? We'll bring you definitely back into the conversation. But Nicolette, do you have any? I'm sorry, Ron. Do you have any questions for Nicolette or thoughts?
For now, I'm going to sit back and practice wait.
Not a problem.
And
Not a problem.
yeah, and just to kind of catch up, but just even what I heard, and you had emailed me your story too, which was why I said to Chevar, we have to have them both on. This is so important, and something everyone can relate to, because you're talking about reality and personal experiences. I think are the most powerful communicators. So I thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm going to be a listener for a little while, and keep going, Chevar. It's been one of those quiet days, so I'm just going to go with the flow.
So Issei, here's how we're going to transition, right? We shared that Nicolette was was volunteering and help with that kind of helped transition her into MADD. Can you talk about that process and how it helped the work that you're doing, and how did you help her? In addition to what is MADD offering now with the new piece that, and I know I asked like 7 questions in one.
Okay.
But if you can go through as many as you can,
No,
go
of course.
for it.
Nicolette's family has been involved with MADD for a very long time, and I had the pleasure of meeting her mom first, and then everyone else, including Nicolette, after in my early days of MADD in 2015. That's when I started working for the organization. And, it started off kind of, I was still kind of learning and kind of getting into the groove of things. And at the time, MADD had 2 programs available. Our Power of Parents program, to kind of also tie in the conversation as parents, talking to parents about the importance of having conversations with their kids at home in regards to just drinking in general, past history, stats, and just trying to encourage that stuff. And especially now that we are in this day and age, a lot of those like little convos, like around the dinner table or anything, they're lost. Like it rarely does happen anymore because we're just always so busy, all of us. So we try to encourage that. And also we had our Power of Youth program where we went into middle schools and high schools, and that was the early form of that program. So when I actually used to work in doing presentations at her school district where she was raised out here on Long Island, she would always join me because again, she walked in the same hallways that these kids at that time used to walk, and we used to do a lot of different things. And just like she said, she shared her story in a certain way. And she was in a good point of her life. She had her ups and downs, of course, like any person. But she was doing really good, and then she went off and took a bit of a break, but came back in a completely new way. By that point, yeah, she's a mom now. She's a wife, an amazing husband. She's living a good life, and also does a lot of amazing side gig jobs that are also impressive. And we started working together in regards to her sharing her story, but it was more so to adults because we actually did some things with law enforcement at first. And we kind of, after each of the presentations that we did in her early days, her coming back, it evolved a little bit more. Obviously, now it's big picture of like, sharing a little bit of everything. But every victim that I had the pleasure of working with, they share their story in a different way. Some victims that I have experienced, like including Nicolette's mom, she shares like every little aspect. Like at this point, this happened during the day, and then it led to this and this and this. Some people kind of go into an overview of just like everything and then kind of detail different points that they're pivotal for them. So it's very unique on how everyone does share their story. And Nicolette also had a really unique way of doing it too. So me as a staff member, but also at the point when she came back as her coworker and her boss, I wanted to make sure that we can kind of outline it in a certain way depending on the audience. And the biggest thing is also the pivot. Making sure that there's certain things in which we can pivot and engage with a little bit more. Everyone always will pay attention, but there could be certain points of like, whoa, that's where the light bulb went off in hearing someone's story, or whoa, I connected with that portion of the story a bit more. And she definitely, as her time progressed, even hit it even more and more out of the park. And definitely was crafting her skills there. But it becomes really unique in kind of sharing the different stories out there. Obviously the way that she shares her story to a group of law enforcement recruits, like for the NYPD, which we've done together, is going to be very different compared to the stories that you share to like a middle school class, of course. We don't want to get too graphic, but we still want to make sure that it hits home with the students there. But the one thing that I will say with Nicolette's story that is unique is when she goes into schools and shares the aftermath of the crash and how that felt for her in school. That's one thing, especially with younger victims that we work with. They have a unique moment in transition there, going back to school, because they had to adult very quickly. Being in a courtroom and being part of the process, seeing the offender on the other side of that courtroom, which is traumatic for the whole family, but also for that teen. And going through normal teenhood too. It's hard, it's a challenge, and a lot of teens don't always understand, because again, they're going through their own things. So for teen survivors and for teen victims, it's a unique situation. So honestly, like she really perfected that as well to kind of share a bit more of, what she experienced during that time, which you don't always get to hear. A lot of the victims that we have, which are all phenomenal, it's of someone who, maybe has passed, or because MADD is Mothers Against Drunk Driving, we typically think of just a mother who lost her child, which of course, unfortunately does occur. But there's so many different perspectives of stories, and we always do our best to kind of capture them all and share them out there. So hopefully,
Well, there was more to the question too. Well, but also, what is so we talked about Nicolette and then the transition to the work that she's doing with MADD. But what? So let's go like a deeper dive into what MADD has to offer and share with the greater community. So for people who don't know, and we talked about it earlier.
yeah, of course.
Go for it.
Yeah, not a problem. So, we actually throughout the years, especially in the last couple years, we kind of have revamped our programs, and we now have it like under our underage substance use program umbrella. And within that, we have our Power Parents and Power of Youth programs, which are our two oldest programs. Power Parents, as I mentioned, talking to parents, geared to caregivers, and to encourage conversations at home. Power of Youth, which there's a middle school version and a high school version, which talks to students about underage alcohol usage, cannabis usage, polysubstance usage. On the middle school end, it talks about encouraging teens to be empowered, to say no, to do the right thing, to make safe choices, and to encourage their friends to do the same too. For the high school version, while we talk about the three different drug aspects, we also do discuss, the dangers of getting into a car with someone who's impaired, being an observant passenger if you notice that the driver just something doesn't seem right, being also a safe driver since a lot of those teens are going to be getting licenses soon if they don't already and able to drive, but also making sure what the true ramifications are. It's not just social and economic, but it's also legal aspects and health aspects too. So we kind of get into that front of it. We have our Power of Me program where we kind of start the conversations with fourth and fifth graders about these dangers, of course, in a way that is sensitive for that age bracket, but also making sure that the observant passenger aspect, making sure that kids have their seatbelts, that they should never administer medications on their own, always by a parent needs to do it or an adult at home needs to do it. We also have a promposal program, which is for juniors and seniors as they head towards prom. A MADD Spirit program, which is headed towards around homecoming time for a lot of schools too. So we have a little bit of everything that we do offer, and everything is offered completely free of charge to communities everywhere. Some of the presentations are also done in Spanish. I am bilingual, so those are ones that I love to do a lot as well, just because again those specific communities don't always have the luxury of having someone come in, or definitely need the information too. So we always like to tackle heading into different communities that are underserved, don't have the opportunities, and want to make sure that they can get the education there too. So we love all the programs that we offer. They're really awesome. They're interactive too. It's not just like me lecturing to a group of students or parents. It doesn't become fun for them. So I like to get conversational, the talking with your hands, the walking back and forth, that we typically do too. As a New Yorker, it's ingrained in me, to do that. But sure that we
That's
make
the
it.
New York thing, yes. You have to be in New York to understand that.
I'd like to ask a question,
Go for
but
it.
I've caught up a little bit here. Most of our coalitions target underage youth, or basically it's primary prevention for youth, from early adolescence to late adolescence, early adulthood, and parents. So those are the groups they mostly work with. And I'm curious how the different age groups have responded. Just what have been some of the comments, reactions, the data that that you might gather from them after they've spoken with you, because we're always looking for approaches that really ring true for people and really penetrate. And I'm just curious what you glean from all of this when you speak with them, or you read their comments after, if you do evaluations afterwards. Have you share your experience?
Ronnie, you stole my question. That was my follow-up question, Ronnie. You stole my question.
How to make up for lost time here, Chevar, Great minds think alike.
Yeah, for each of our presentations, we do offer pre and post evaluations, and throughout the years, because I've seen the initial starts of certain programs too, and what the current versions are now. Middle school students always respond really well to our program. They also are appreciative of all the facts. They're still able at the age that they're still fact heavy, so you can get a bit fact heavy there when it comes to that stuff. When it comes to high school students, it can vary. Ninth and 10th grade can be open to facts, but once you get to 11th and 12th grade, they're like, I already know this information. Why are you telling me this? Like, I don't really care. So I like to get a bit more conversational. And the way that we do our presentations, it can be something like in an assembly, which is great, but it's also hard to manage a lot of students in one place. But we also like to do just smaller classroom presentations. So a lot of health classes in high school or middle school, whenever they do their drug or alcohol unit, they like to fit us in for like a class period, which fits in really well. And we have the opportunity to get even more conversational there. So there's always going to be that kid that like, I don't care, I'm not going to pay attention. Or so I'll say, okay, let's pick on you, let's ask you a question. And then once that's one student opens up, then the floodgates open, and that everyone kind of brings up, well, what about this and what about that? And it creates like a really awesome environment for those older students to really hear from each other too, about their perspectives. Because at the end of the day, everyone thinks that everyone else is doing it, but the reality is that it doesn't always happen that way. Again, but it can also vary. And the way that we also conduct our presentations can vary too. Like, I'm based here on Long Island. I can't do a lot of the presentations here on Long Island like I would do in New York City. Because again, it's a very different place and the environment's very different too. So I always manage my,
Thank
take
you for that. Thank you for acknowledging that.
and I always, it's somewhere where it might be more of an upper class type of neighborhood versus, somewhere where it's a bit more underserved. I change the narrative as well. So you always have to adapt with wherever you go and change up conversations, tones, and so on to make sure that they can really listen. And a lot of them at the end of the day walk out with something, that they took away. Because that's what I enjoy about presentations, that light bulb going off, like, I get it, or I see you. So, and that's what I really love.
What about you, Nicolette? What's been your experience with that too? Because, I mean, you both have different. I would assume that you do some of the programming and the way that the evidence has created the program. But when you tell your story to young people, what usually is the reaction?
Yeah. So usually there's like a structure to these presentations. We'll start off with something called a mission moment, which is the opportunity for the speaker to share some sort of personal connection to the topic. And obviously, when I'm delivering the presentations, that's my opportunity to share my own story. In other cases, if somebody wasn't personally affected, they may share other stories that everyone will use with permission. But yeah, usually I start off. That's my attention getter. That's where I try to establish, okay, I'm grabbing their attention. I'm giving them a reason to pay attention. And it's usually, something along the lines of this can happen to you. You don't have to just be an older person to pass away, death doesn't discriminate age. And so, pulling their attention in, they're always attentive to the story. In the middle is when there's the facts and we're going through all the things like Issei mentioned. And then I usually tie everything in again with more personal stuff, pulling things from my experience being at the courthouse and things that I said directly to the offender and whatnot. So the story, I think, is the most impactful, at least for me. I always notice that's when they start, looking up and paying attention. If they were looking at their phones or whatever, like, okay, now I have their attention. And you have to have their attention in order for any of it to even be purposeful, right? Because if you don't grab their attention, then what's the point? You know what I mean? So I think establishing that in the very beginning, coming in and sharing. Usually what I do is I'll read the first chapter of my book, or at least that's what I do now. And that begins with the perspective of I'm getting ready to read my impact statement before the court. So that's the scene, is that I'm in the courthouse, and I'm getting ready to address the whole court, the judge, the offender, my family that's in the room. And then that's quoted. I'm walking them through now what I saw in the crash. And so that's pulling them in. And then I connect it to, okay, why are we here? Why is this even important? Why should you listen to what I have to say? And then we get into all those details, the facts, all that other stuff. So that's usually how I approach it. And I would say it's effective, but of course it's changed. You have to know your audience. You have to adapt to, the different groups of people that you're talking to. Because the goal is how can I reach them, right? And or what can they take away from this? The goal is for me to find that and then to deliver it to them.
Thank you for responding to that. Chevar, I know you're waiting to ask a question.
No, go for it. No, because I'm glad Nicolette talked about her book, because I know I wanted to circle back to her about the book. And my question to you is, throughout this entire process, and EC said you modified it based off of I guess years of time, multiple times of doing it. Is it any therapeutic nature that comes out of this for you, and how is it writing the book, and how can we get the book? I don't know.
Yeah, awesome. So, as far as it being therapeutic, yeah, like I said, sharing it is usually it's nice because we all have this innate need to be understood. And this is a really tricky thing. Not many people can understand this unless they've gone through it, right? But this allows me to try and at least share it in a way where people can grasp, like, oh my goodness, like what might have that been like, and that brings me some comfort to be able to connect with people and to share the story and to feel like, okay, they understand where I'm coming from, right? As far as writing the book, it was therapeutic to a degree, but it also was traumatic. And I ended up re-traumatizing myself.
Can only imagine.
I did.
Only imagine.
I did. And really what was because what you do is when you write something like this, when you're writing a memoir, you're going back into and reliving these things. If you want to write the story well, you need to go back into that headspace. You need to go back and dredge up all of those feelings, all of those details. And there was a point, and for me it was when I looked at my sister's autopsy report. I had never seen that. I don't know that I needed to, but it was kind of like, I knew what her injuries were. I knew how she passed away, but for some reason, looking at some of that new info, so the autopsy report, some of the police photos, and really all the criminal records and court documents, that was new for me to see all of that, or at least all of it. That was difficult, and so I definitely went through a little bit of a period of like, okay, I need to take a step back. That's when I started to see, okay, I'm still affected by PTSD. Like it's here. But you know what? I'm glad and I'm grateful that this was the process, because I know that it's making it a powerful story, right? I need to tell it authentically and the way that it is, like, and it's just acknowledging, like, and I have one chapter in the back of my book where I talk about that process of what it was like going back. And for me, it just kind of solidified this: grief is not linear. It's okay to go back and to struggle and to revisit these old thoughts of, oh, like, why did this happen and whatnot. Like, it's real. This is what it is. And I want other people to know that this is okay. It's normal. And all we could do is just try our best to continue moving forward with the tools and resources that we have to do that, and the support of great people and great organizations like MADD.
Thank you. How do we get the book?
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot to answer that question. So it is on Amazon. There are a couple of versions. There is a digital version on Amazon and a paperback and hardcover. And I also sell them directly through my website, which I mail personally and sign myself.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm happy to share those links.
For all our listeners and viewers, we'll make sure to put that in the description, the bio, so we all have access to that. And please reach out to Nicolette if you have any questions. If that's okay, Nicolette, they want to reach out to you if they're going through something and they want to have a conversation, hearing your story. I think it could be therapeutic for some, and maybe traumatic for some. We don't know how it is until they listen to you. And it could be a learning experience for some of us, right?
Absolutely. I am a certified, I'm certified to work with victims. Issa, I don't know that we touched on this a little bit. Do you want to kind of talk a little bit about how we can serve victims?
Yeah, absolutely. So we since day one, the biggest thing is helping our victims. So we have a 24-hour helpline available at 877 MADD help. And victims or just anyone that just needs to talk to someone can reach out at any point. And especially, whenever you may be listening to this in the future, right now we're heading into the holiday season. It's one of the toughest times of the year for our victims and their families. So this is an amazing time for people to reach out if they just need to talk to someone. We help them with peer-to-peer support, court accompaniment, just making sure that they're not alone, especially in the courtroom, support groups, and so many other things. We also do have certified staff. I am also as well certified to work with victims, but we also have volunteers that are also certified too. Nicolette is one of them. And actually, during her time as being a program specialist with our team, she actually was helping one of younger victims that we had that still their whole family recalls her, read the book, and went through a similar type of situation where they were a young survivor of a crash, and it has really helped them out too. So there's so many different perspectives out there, and there's so many people that can help others out there too, no matter who you may be. But Nicolette's one of our amazing ones that we have here locally, so she's always available in case anyone needs to talk to someone.
Absolutely.
And he said, I'm going to need you to send me some links also for MADD for any parents or families who want to learn more about. And I want to say this, as Issei said this, and I'm not sure if anyone heard, it's free. It's free. They'll come out and talk to the young people in your community, in your schools, in your neighborhoods. Not only to the young people, to the families also. Is that correct to say, Issei?
Yeah.
And not only in Long Island, they'll come out to New York City, right?
Yeah. Or wherever you may be listening, we have offices all over the country. So, if you're somewhere in Middle America, we can definitely, connect you to our local office there. And you can
Perfect.
anytime. So please
So
don't.
if you're in Nebraska, if you're in Idaho, if you're in San Francisco, I don't know, I just rhymed that. Please, Matt will be out there. We're gonna wrap up soon, but before we get out of here, right? This is what we normally do. We have a question that we normally ask, right? Probably gonna change it up. You know what? Let's change. Let's just ask. So when you were younger, when you were 6, 7, 8-year old, and you had the teacher come around to the classroom and say, "Hey, what do you want to be when you get older?" What did you share? What did you decide on at that time?
You say you want to go first?
I was gonna say you go first.
Go first. So funny enough, my first answer was that I wanted to be a police officer.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to, it's changed a little bit. First it was police officer, then it was psychologist, but there was always this.
Wow. At 7, you want to be a psychologist? That's pretty cool.
I don't know. I just had this idea of, I just wanted to help people. And it's not too far from what I do now. I didn't mention this, but I also teach undergraduate communication classes for CUNY and for St. Joe's University. So that teacher, right, just serving the community, and then also working with MADD. So it's not too far off. But yeah.
So for me, it has also changed throughout the years too. At some point a chef, and then also when I had a little older, an architect, because I love architecture, just everything about it. But as I got older into like end of high school, college, um, I wasn't really sure, but I wanted to help people. That's all what I knew. And that's actually during college, I had a class where we had to also do an internship, and I started working in a nonprofit organization that coincided with a class on campus. And that's where everything started. But I realized I'm first generation American. English is my second language. And I recall my first day of kindergarten, knowing no English. I cried, I got lost. I didn't know where I was going, and some nice older ladies at the school found me, and they brought me to my right class. And that's kind of like my core memory that I have, that I was like, I just want to be like those nice ladies that help me and help other people in a different way. And it's evolved since then, to doing what I do now, which I love what I do.
You want to hear a funny story, you say? when you were 6 years old and you said those older ladies, they're like 22. Probably.
No, they were like they were like older paraprofessional women that were doing like, at that time like big laminators at the school. And yeah, and like
I
doing
only say that because, when you're younger and you see someone, you're like, oh, these the old people. And you come to find her and they're like 25 years old.
If you're listening, women, I'm so sorry.
See, they could have been 28. You just called them old ladies.
You're right. I'm sorry. But they were really kind
No,
because that was really
no, that's okay. It's a part of life, and when I was growing up, if you're over 30, you just, you didn't know anything, and, I found out otherwise.
I'm at that age that
Well,
my nieces consider me old and ancient now. So I
So you're the older nice guy.
But it's wonderful that both of you continue on your path to help people, and it's who you are. It was who you were meant to be. I mean, we were talking about this. I wanted to be a veterinarian, but I was really lousy in science, and I just been playing guitar since I'm 7, so I decided I was going to be a rock star. I had to find another path, but we do what comes natural to us eventually, and we're led there. And I wouldn't have it any other way. But thank you for being here today. I apologize again for being late, but what powerful stuff both of you have to share. And again, we're going to mention you to our coalitions. I still want you to come and present at one of our networking events, in the future, because I said this, and I didn't mean to say any negative way, but I said to one of our program officers, I said, yeah, we're going to be doing our next podcast with people who work with MADD, and it's not your mother's MADD anymore. And it's true. MADD has really changed to meet the needs of people. You're where they're at, and what you offer is just it blows my mind. It is incredible. And just a quick thing I always say about prevention: we very often do not see the results for a generation, sometimes a decade. It takes a while. But when you were talking earlier, Nicolette, I was thinking of I used to be in the public schools in New York City, and I was a SAPIS, and I worked for the Department of Education. And I used to go in, and those were the years where the alcoholic family roles were very popular to talk about. And I would do a lesson in that. And I had a teacher come up to me, and she was probably close to my age. Now she was probably late 60s, and she was crying, and she said, "You just described my family." And that was her aha moment. It took that long, but we got through to somebody. And sometimes it takes a lifetime, but just know that you're planting that seed, and that's what prevention's about. It grows. We just don't know when.
And it is worth it, even if it just saves one person. You know what I mean? So that's why we just keep trekking along, and that's it. That's our goals. So
Well, thank you. Thank you for the work you do. It's just incredible.
thank you so much.
thank you.
All right, Chevar, I wasn't here for the opening, but I'll be here for the closing. Yeah.
It's totally fine. So Nicolette and Issei, if you don't mind, you can log off. Ronnie and I are going to close out. But again, thank you guys for being such wonderful guests. Nicolette, thank you so much for sharing your story. Angelica, you're here with us, Angelica. Issei, keep doing the good work, man. I appreciate that you said New York City is a different, well, you didn't say animal, but New York City it is very different from everywhere else, and thank you for acknowledging that. And when you go out there and you work with the young people, that you know that what happens over here doesn't happen over here. The whole goal is to get us to the same space.
That's what makes it awesome too. That's why New York City is such a unique place.
But there you guys, Ronnie, we're gonna get out of here. We're gonna say our goodbyes, but you guys can log off, and we're gonna say our goodbyes.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
And again, for the listeners, we're gonna have all that stuff in the description soon.
In the comments?
In the comments, please write to us, ask questions, and Ronnie, I thank you for this. Is personally for me, and anyone probably for people listening, the having someone share a story like that. It was very moving. I had so many questions. I didn't want to make it about her, but she did. She was very, very open, and she wanted to talk, and she wanted to talk about. I could have went a whole other hour because I had so many other questions for her that I wanted to lean into, just because like her stories for me at least was amazing. Again, I wanted to talk about. There was so much. I'm going to go into a whole other podcast, another episode, and also Issei with the MADD and talking about how what MADD does. It was a great for me. It was a great episode. so far.
I was very impressed, and also I was very touched from the moment she shared her story in an email, and just to hear that story, it resonates with all of us in one way or another. It really does. But I'm sorry that I had to miss the first part, but the best part is I get to listen to it or watch it, and I'll catch up.
Absolutely.
But I know you probably didn't get to my opening, but or unless you did you say?
I did the opening.
Oh, I appreciate that. So if you don't mind, I'll close this out and thank everybody for listening. And I hope you got something from this today. I know that I did. And hopefully, we'll have them come back on again in a while and just update us on stuff. But I thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching, for listening, whatever time of the day or night. And don't forget to subscribe because we really want to spread the message of what we talk about here. Because remember, we're the solution. Nothing changes if we change nothing. Have a great Thanksgiving. Or by the time you hear or watch this, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. Happy holidays. Enjoy.
Enjoy.